Minister Edwin Tong.
Mr. Speaker, I thank both Mr. Ng as well as Associate Professor James for their support of the bill. Let me try and deal with it in Mr. Ng's words, quick-fire fashion response. Mr. Ng asked about the breeder's test and also about the principles that will apply for interpreting a disclaimer. I'll deal with these 2 points first and then touch on the sustainability issue a bit later on. The new Section 18A of the Plant Varieties Protection Act introduces an additional mode of examination. This involves a breeder or another person, organization, or entity acceptable to the registrar of plant varieties and IPOS or the examiner. This is known as the breeder's test, which Mr. Ng referred to a moment ago. Mr. Ng asked when a breeder's test should be done so that applicants would be clear when it would be necessary for them to expend the time and resources to do the test. So to qualify for plant variety protection, a candidate plant variety must, amongst other criteria, be A, distinct, B, uniform, and C, stable. These are known as the DUS criteria. Whether a candidate plant variety meets the DUS criteria is established at examination. Currently, the registrar may either appoint external experts, as I mentioned earlier, as examiners to conduct examinations, including the test for the DUS criteria, or utilize an existing examination report with the results on the DUS criteria issued by a foreign examiner from an approved country. The new breeder's test mode will give the applicant another manner in which the application can proceed. So breeders can now opt to perform the required test by themselves or to directly engage someone else recognized by the registrar or the appointed examiner to do so before submitting the results to IPOS. IPOS will then conduct further consultations with stakeholders on procedural details before implementing the new breeder's test. The second item for clarification by Mr. Ng relates to the new Section 30(a) of the Registered Designs Act. This relates to the disclaiming of rights in relation to a specified feature of a design. Mr. Ng sought clarification on the principles for interpreting a disclaimer under the RDA. IPOS's approach to disclaimers under the RDA takes reference from our own trademarks regime and adopts the same intent and understanding as to the effect of disclaimers. When applying for registered design protection, an applicant may identify what they wish to protect by providing a representation and a description of their design, and if necessary, by clarifying which parts of that design they are not seeking protection for. The intent in providing applicants with the option to make disclaimers is so that applicants can specify which features of a design they don't wish or they do not wish to protect. So the protection conferred on a registered design will include the features that have been described and represented, whilst excluding any features that have been disclaimed. So therefore, a disclaimer should only reduce the features that are protected under the registered design. Next, let me turn to Mr. Ng's third point on Singapore's IP strategy and how it can support sustainability, innovation, and contribute to our fight against climate change. So, climate change is not only an urgent global issue, it is an existential challenge for us in Singapore as a small island. We must get creative and pioneer technological and policy solutions for sustainable development. IP is a useful tool to drive and support that innovation, including innovation in clean technologies. What we can do and have done is to help to accelerate the pace of innovation by facilitating better support from our IP regime for the development and use of emerging technologies, technology transfer from the public sector to the private sector, to expedite the introduction of new innovations to the market, and finally, faster protection to benefit innovators working in fields with short technology life cycles. In my opening speech, I mentioned the Singapore IP Strategy 2030, or SIPS 2030. Part of our commitment under SIPS is to support technological advances through policy reviews. So, for instance, I think Prof. James mentioned the new rules that were introduced last November as part of the Copyright Act 2021 to clearly permit computational data analysis. Future reviews will continue to take into account emerging clean technologies, and certainly further reviews on a broader point will also take into account what Associate Professor James said about AI and machine learning. All of these are developments that continue, they evolve, and over time, new changes will mean that we might need new rules. So we are committed to ensuring that our regime as a whole, given that we are dealing with a high cutting-edge technology space, will have to continue to evolve to meet these changes. Another commitment under CIPS is to increase enterprise access to publicly funded IP, including for innovations that can benefit our healthcare and sustainability efforts. Unlocking the fruits of public sector research will benefit our businesses, even as their work in bringing research to the market helps to realize the potential of these innovations. And finally, the Singapore IP Fast Track Program, introduced in 2020, expedites the processing of IP applications, whether they are patents, trademarks, and registered designs. They can move from application to protection in as fast as 6, 3, and 1 month, respectively. That's very quick by international standards. And the sooner and quicker we're able to do this, the more confidence an innovator will have in the system that it will be able to protect, register and protect its inventions. This reduction in the time needed to acquire protection benefits innovations in fields with short product life cycles in particular, and facilitates the rapid commercialization and proliferation of new technologies, which may include green technologies. So, Associate Professor James also spoke about how we might look at and review the IP regime and how we might want to be more circumscribed. And I think, as I heard him say, reduce the scope and breadth of trademark applications and recognition because of the need to ensure that there will be more competition for the incumbents' space. So I think the point really is, I think, quite the converse. A strong IP system that recognizes invention, protects innovation, is one that will promote innovation and promote this space. If we had no IP protection, I mean, Prof. James spoke about having more competition for the incumbents, but I would venture to suggest that if we had no IP protection or less IP protection, then in fact the space for incumbents to be in Singapore will be far less ideal. And you will find that incumbents will take their innovations and inventions elsewhere where they can apply for and obtain protection, trademark protection. In terms of competition, I would say that competing goods can actually be sold. There's no bar to that. It is just that you can't misrepresent the basis or the source of your product. So competition is not stifled, but innovation is protected under our current regime. So, having said all that, the point I made earlier about constantly evolving, constantly having to adapt and react to changes in this space remains true. We will not rest on our laurels. We will continue to ensure that our IP system fosters innovation, promotes commercialization, and that includes in spaces like in green technologies, and helps new ideas, new innovators realize their potential. I once again thank members who have spoken, both Mr. Ng and Prof. James, and support the bill. In summary, this bill is part of our process, our continual process and efforts to ensure that our IP office and our regime and the system that we use, and very often it's not just about the laws, but about how they are implemented in practice. What's the procedure like? How quick can we do it? How fast is the turnaround time? And how efficient can we deal with applications? All of this is part of our efforts to ensure an efficient and a business-friendly environment. This in turn helps our companies, innovators and inventors protect their IP and in turn turn their innovations into a competitive edge and advantage. MinLaw and IPOS will continue to work to review, update and improve Singapore's IP regime. Mr. Speaker, with that I beg to move.
Associate Professor James Lim.
Thank you, Speaker. Just a very quick point of clarification in what I said about intellectual property with respect to trademarks. I wish to clarify that there is, in fact, I feel that there is a distinction between trademarks as a class versus other classes of intellectual property for the purposes of promoting innovation. So here, my question is more whether Minister Tong feels that trademarks should be treated somewhat differently, given that it tends to be conferred more for existing incumbents as opposed to other classes of intellectual property that is often conferred to new entrants.
I understand, I had understood Prof. James's point. I mean, there are different classes, and I think that's precisely why we have dealt with it in different pieces of legislation, recognizing that there are different intrinsic qualities that go behind each of these classes. For trademarks in particular, the point is a broader one. If we try to reduce the space or the recognition of trademarks, or curtail them or compromise them, then I think the knock-on impact on innovators and inventors wanting to bring their products into Singapore to obtain that protection will be in turn affected. And that was the broader point I made about sounding a caution about trying to restrict the application of trademarks for these innovations. Thank you, sir.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Intellectual Property Amendment Bill.
Committee stage, what day?
Now, sir, I beg to move that Parliament will immediately resolve itself into a committee on the bill.
The question is that Parliament will immediately resolve itself into a committee on the bill. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is that clauses 1 to 56 stand part of the bill. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Bill to be reported. Minister for Law.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to report that the bill has been considered in committee and agreed to without amendment.
Third reading, what day?
Now, sir, I beg to move that the bill be now read a third time.
The question is that the bill be now read a third time. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Intellectual Property Amendment Bill.